right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Practicing Imperfection podcast. This week, we will be starting a several-week conversation on values, particularly mine. When I shared with you all a few weeks back about the idea and core belief that imperfect people change the world, that was just the beginning. As one of my coaches and now business partners who also guided me in all of this work says, the vision, which is the imperfect people change the world, is the top of the mountain. It's a dream. It's my dream for the world, things that I hope that others will see. And it's something that I'll continue to work toward for my entire life, but I may never actually see the result of that, right? I may never actually see a world where everyone believes that imperfect people change the world. And so my mission is the thing that I hope to actually accomplish within this path in my lifetime, which more to come on that in the future. And then my values are guideposts. They're the flashlights and the map that I use to get there, to move toward my vision, toward my mission. And so with that, today I want to start a conversation about these values. And I want to start this conversation in the hope that you will start to think differently about your own values. In the hopes that it gives you permission to think outside of the quote values box and start to think about what truly guides you in your life. What do you continue to come back to again and again as those guideposts for decision making? I will say this is an episode that was meant to be one episode and is now turned into 3. I have a lot to say on this particular value, and I just can't wait to dive in with you. So as always, thank you so much for being here. Let's get started by getting grounded. So settling into wherever you are right now and taking a moment to recognize you are here. You are entirely your own. Take a moment to breathe and recognize yourself in this space. What is it that your body is trying to tell you right now? Are you able to truly listen and hear what it's trying to say to you? If it's available to you right now, I invite you to pause the podcast and ask your body, what do you need from me right now? Write down what comes up, no judgments or overthinking, and either give yourself what you need or commit to doing so as soon as the time is right. Coming back into the space now that we've grounded and are present with ourselves and our bodies. If this practice of listening to and trusting your body is new or challenging for you, this episode is for you. I do encourage you to listen to the end, take notes, share questions, and check out the resources that I will have for practicing what we just did, which is embodiment, as well as resources for cultivating self-trust, which will all be available to you at the end of the episode and in the show notes. Now, let's dive into today's episode. All right, we're back. You're here. Let's get started. Today, I'm kicking off my conversation on values with one that I see as important in relationships, leadership, and most importantly, in building a foundation of love and respect with yourself. My value number 1 is understand self. This value of understanding oneself is so multidimensional to me. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking about one of three ways that I see this idea of understanding self showing up in life. The first way I see that is understanding self as an act of self-love and affirmation, which we'll be talking about today. Number two is understanding self as an act of intentional leadership. And number three is understanding self in order to love others. So let's dive into number one. Too often, many of us are looking outside of ourselves for ideas, guidance, opinions, etc. While we are community-driven organisms, and finding and building community is key to our success and survival and happiness, sometimes this desire to be accepted and a part of the whole has us tamping down our inner voice or ignoring our bodies when they've been trying to tell us something. And then finding ourselves feeling utterly lost and alone when it comes time to make a decision for ourselves. Understanding self goes beyond intuition, though, in my mind. It's not just about trusting your embodied reactions and feelings, although that's really important. It's also about knowing yourself well enough to know what your kryptonites are, to know what you're really scared of and, need to avoid versus, what you're really scared of, but really need to do anyway. Understanding yourself is knowing what you need from yourself, from a partner, a friend, a boss, a job, a workout, a meal, and on and on and on and on. It's about understanding your triggers, understanding what causes you to withdraw. It's also about understanding what brings you energy, what lights you up, what brings you to life, and ultimately what brings you joy. Can you answer all of those things about yourself? Do you know exactly what lights you up, what brings you joy, what your triggers are? Do you understand what happens that causes you to withdraw from family, friends, experiences? One thing I know to be true is that understanding yourself is not a destination. It's not something that you'll ever fully achieve either. Instead, it's more of a practice that you will hone over time, a series of questions or practices or rituals that you'll create for yourself to help you come back to yourself and your body and your knowing, and ultimately to build trust with yourself. Understanding self is an act of self-love. And I know we talk a lot about self-love, and it's a really common kind of kitschy theme at this point, but for me, self-love can be hard in a world where we are encompassed by criticism, where we're always trying to meet someone else's expectations. And so to tell someone, oh, just love yourself, that's not concrete enough for me. I need steps, I need help, I need actions, right? And so for me, the practice of getting to know myself, becoming comfortable with myself, learning embodiment, and ultimately understanding myself is an act of self-love for me. I say this because to continue to build a practice in understanding and trusting yourself, you will along the way learn how to love yourself just as you need to be loved. Once you get comfortable here in this place, in this body, understanding and trusting and loving yourself, you will be able to trust yourself to design your life. You'll be able to trust yourself as a leader. You'll be able to ask for what you need in order to feel loved in a relationship. And isn't being able to show up in that way and ask for those things acts of self-love? Self-love isn't about building more independence or not needing other people. It's about understanding exactly who you are and what you need from the community that you're a part of, from your work environment, from your relationships. And ultimately, it's about being able to communicate that with others confidently and with a certain sureness that we're not inherently given at this point, and that often we have to learn and grow. Without understanding yourself, you can't truly love yourself, right? Without understanding yourself, you can't truly expect others to understand and support and love you. But oftentimes we find ourselves expecting others to love us in the way that we want to be loved, when we can't necessarily define how we want to be loved, nor can we love ourselves in that way. And honestly, at the end of the day, it all starts with you. The impact that you have on the world around you starts with you knowing you. In the beginning of this podcast, we did a little bit of embodiment work in our presencing, in our getting centered moment. And according to positivepsychology.com, embodiment practices use the body as a tool for healing through self-awareness, mindfulness, connection, self-regulation, finding balance, and creating self-acceptance. Embodiment explores the relationship between our physical being and our energy. It involves the interaction between our body, thoughts, and actions. Now, I have a lot of experience with embodiment practices, both as a yoga instructor and avid yoga practitioner, as well as within my coaching training, which really focus on embodiment as a part of coaching. And that's why I feel really passionately about this, and why I'm sharing this as a part of this belief that knowing yourself and understanding yourself is an act of self-love. In order to know and understand yourself, you have to know and understand embodiment and be able to feel and act upon that within your own body. Through embodiment practices, we come to better understand ourselves. And in understanding ourselves, we're able to design better lives, careers, etc., and also become better leaders, partners, and friends. Ultimately, hopefully, leading us to cultivate more joy and meaning in our lives. If embodiment is a new concept to you, or it's something that you're interested in learning more about, don't worry, you're not alone. I've worked with clients who could not even name a feeling, all the way to clients who could feel feelings in their bodies and tell me what they looked like and sounded like and felt like. It is a spectrum. It is a practice. As much as anything else, learning embodiment takes time. It takes awareness. It takes focus. And oftentimes, especially for those of us who have experienced some sort of trauma, there can be a sense of dissociation from our bodies. So I do encourage you, if you are someone who has had some form of physical traumatic experience or even mental traumatic experience, to, tread lightly in the realm of embodiment. Maybe work with a professional who is certified in trauma-informed work. I have dabbled in this, but I am by no means certified in embodiment in a trauma-informed way. But it is something that I feel is really, really core to this concept of understanding yourself. And often people talk about intuition, and that can seem a little fluffy for people sometimes. It can seem a little woo-woo. It can be like, well, okay, let's talk about my intuition. But the thing is, it's inherent to all of us. Intuition is a natural survival instinct that has been developed in humans over millennia. And if the word throws you off, then just think about it as trusting yourself, trusting the feelings that come up in your body. We say gut feeling for a reason, right? You have a literal gut sensation when something is happening that maybe isn't right, or is right. You can tell the difference. I can tell the difference between when I am scared, as in I am in danger, or when I am scared because it's something new or outside of my comfort zone or exciting. One of the big areas that I have had to work on embodiment for myself is this area. There's a gray area for me between excitement and anxiety. And I'd say that might be common for a lot of people. There is a joke within my family and our significant others that the Riser family doesn't know how to be excited about things. We only know how to be anxious about them. And maybe that's just me and my sibling, but either way, it has been a practice for me when there's something coming up that I am looking forward to, like a big trip, right? Sam and I used to go on big trips every year prior to, the world shutting down. And I would find myself, instead of being excited and looking forward to this trip, I would just be sitting in anxiety and stress. And so over the last 2 years, I've made a conscious effort of when I'm feeling that knot in my stomach, that tightening of my chest, to really take a moment to step back, to take a deep breath, and to start reframing that in my mind of I'm excited, not I'm nervous, I'm stressed, I'm scared, I'm excited. Because I want to cultivate a new embodiment experience for myself when it comes to exciting things happening, right? I'm getting married this year. I would like to be excited about that and not feeling the physical sensations of anxiety. And so part of that is shifting my mindset. The other part of that is learning what it feels like physically for me to be excited, because it might be easier for me to cultivate the physical feeling of excitement than it is for me to just shift my mindset. And so that's something to think about too. If you're someone who struggles with, changing your mind and thinking positively, maybe it's more important to feel those feelings in your body. So all of that to be said about embodiment, in order to understand self, in order to be able to practice effective forms of self-love, in order to be able to show up as your whole self, love people with your whole heart, be the best version of yourself that you can imagine, you have to understand who you are. You have to understand where you need support. You also have to understand what your strengths are and be able to speak openly about them and excitedly about them. But all of this really continues to come back to this idea of embodiment, this idea of not only knowing your mind, but knowing your emotions, knowing how those emotions affect your body, being able to sit in a space of discomfort physically and understand why it's happening. It's not just about, oh, I have butterflies in my stomach right now, but like, why? Are they good? Are they good butterflies? Or are they trying to tell you something? This is a constant practice of understanding you, understanding your needs, understanding what you bring to the table, and being able to sit fully in that, and then welcome in support, welcome in, positive affirmations that people say about you, et cetera, et cetera. I have a couple of other conversations I want to have on this topic, but I hope that this has kind of sparked your thinking about how well do you know yourself? How well do you understand yourself, your needs, the way that you show up in the world? And not only from the negative standpoint of understanding your challenges and your triggers and all of that, but also understanding what it is you're bringing to the world, what you offer. I saw something this week and I shared it with a dear friend who I know will be listening to this. that, you have a lot to bring to the table. It's okay to act like it. But in order to act like it in a way that is wholesome and encouraged and embraced by others, it has to be embodied. Otherwise, it's projecting. Otherwise, it's ego. But to really embrace all of the things that you can bring to the table, along with all the things that you can't bring to the table, and be able to truly, truly sit with that, is a superpower. And that's why it's one of my values. So that's our conversation for today. Just some food for thought around the idea of understanding yourself and embodiment. I will say, if embodiment is new to you or something that you want more practice in, I am hosting a workshop all about understanding and practicing embodiment. If you're listening to this podcast after the workshop has happened, it's okay. It will be recorded and you can access that at the link in the show notes. You can also access registration at the link in the show notes, depending on when you're listening to this. There will also be a free resource and some tips in order to practice embodiment on your own for listeners as well. So I hope that you'll kind of dive into this practice. As I mentioned, embodiment is also a strong part of my coaching practice and something that I do with my clients as a way to build self-trust, confidence, and be able to make better, more aligned decisions. So ultimately, my hope for you is that you walk away with the intention to practice a little bit more embodiment in your life and see what that means for you. I also hope that you'll join me for the workshop to start practicing embodiment as a tool to better connect with and understand yourself as an act of self-love. Next week, I'm going to dive more into the concept of understanding self as an act of leadership, both in your life and your work. And I hope that you'll join me then as well, as I dive more into what understanding self looks like in my world and out in the world. Until next time, I hope you continue to show up and practice imperfection with grace and the desire to learn and grow. Bye for now, friends.